I don't know about you, but that looks like a pretty good 3-shot group to me.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the homestead. In this episode of the Modern Mountain Man Project, we're going to be discussing my multi-day backcountry hunting setup. So this is all the gear I would be taking if I'm going camping out in the backcountry specifically to hunt. And I figure no better day to film it than the very first day of general deer and elk season here in North Idaho. Why am I not out there? Because I have some company visiting tomorrow, so I have to get the house ready. So we're just going to start talking about everything that's in here. Obviously, this is not an ultralight setup. This is very gear heavy. But before I get any complaints about it, let's think about a little historical context. The French voyageurs for the Hudson Bay Company, what can be looked at as some of the original legit mountain men, would carry on average at least 200 to 300 pounds of gear through the portages. And there's even stories over 400 pounds being carried. So I don't think this 1/3 of my body weight is too much to worry about on a nice little multi-day backcountry hunt. So with that, if you haven't seen the video where I discuss my hunting rifle, I will link that down below. If you haven't seen the previous video where I discuss my hunting ammo, where we go and load all that up, I will also link that down below, as well as, of course, all the timestamps for this video. So without any further ado, let's get into the pack. So first, let's talk about the pack itself. This is a Milsurp ILBE. It was the Marine Corps rucksack for quite a while. I don't remember exactly how long, but a pretty long time. And this is a very, very lightly used one. One of the ways that you could tell is by looking at the padding here, because obviously this is the first stuff that would wear out, and we have a little bit of rubbing here. But honestly, I would attribute most of that to me carrying it and not the person that owned it before me. Obviously, I got it used though, bought it at the surplus store. And it is, in my opinion, probably the best rucksack, long distance backpack, whatever you want to call it, ever made. It is just such an incredible bomb-proof piece of kit. And there's tons of videos out there discussing it if you want to go and check it out a little bit further. I'm going to actually lay it down because that's actually the easiest. On the bottom, yeah, I know. I hear a lot of people, especially the ultralight people or the more ultralight people, saying, you don't need all this gear, you don't need a sleeping pad like that. This is my base sleeping pad. So understand that where I am planning on hunting and camping, it is almost certain to be below freezing at night. It's basically a guarantee. So this goes on the ground first, and then my inflatable sleeping pad, which is on the inside. And then the other thing, part of the reason this is on the bottom is if I just need somewhere to sit, if I need somewhere to rest, because some of the trails that I could be on are very, very long. So if I just need to kick the ruck off for a little bit and take a breather, it's very nice to have this accessible so I could just set it on the ground or up against a tree. The tent, it is a Big Agnes. I don't remember the exact model. I will put that here in the video. And the reason it has this silver Sharpie here is I got it at an REI garage sale when I was still an REI member. So I got this, I think it was about 50% off at the time, which was a screaming deal. And this thing is, I don't think it's technically an ultralight tent, but in my opinion, it is basically an ultralight tent. And it's a 2-person, which is great. So if I have a friend going with me, or if I'm taking my dogs, or because I just like having extra room inside my tent, sue me. We'll talk about the assault pack later because that's its own separate piece of kit, and I think it deserves its own separate section. So on this side, I have all the poles that I need for the tent, and they're going into, these are actually mortar pouches. They were not originally designed to hold water bottles, but I have the poles going down into the pouch so that they won't fall out, and then they're also weaved in through the webbing. And then I also have them tied off. So there's basically no way that they're going anywhere. And then on this side, I don't have to flip it over to show you, I don't think, but I have 2 of the same water bottles, stainless steel, single wall, over on this side. The reason is I don't like the Nalgene bottles. I don't like plastic to begin with. I hate plastic in general. But as far as those Nalgene bottles, if you fall on them, they can break very easily, and then you're out your water bottle. You can't boil water in them, at least not without getting a whole bunch of chemicals in your water and whatnot. So I would just rather stick with the stainless steel. And since I'm not planning on stalking animals while carrying this giant ruck, I'm not too worried about the reflectivity of the stainless steel. Over on this side as well, I have, this is a Winchester hatchet that I slapped the handle on and put my brand on. Unfortunately, because it wasn't necessarily made for the surplus sheath, doesn't fit too well, but there she'd be. Very nice piece of kit. It does have a nail puller, and it may come in handy in certain instances, but I currently don't really have a use for a nail pulling axe. It's just kind of, you know, more for the hatchet side of it, more for the chopping. Continuing on with wood processing, I have a Sven saw over here. This is the large model. I personally like it. You know, I know that there's different versions of collapsible saws out there. I know that this one may not be the most technologically advanced one out there, but it works for me personally. I've used it before. It has the same name as my dog, so that's kind of cool. And yeah, you know, again, similar to the sheath and the pack and the salt pack and a lot of other gear here, got it at the surplus store. So, you know, I got it new though, but they had it, and I like supporting local businesses. I don't like buying stuff online. Next up, we're going to take the brain off because it is fully removable. But the first thing in here is this Survive Outdoor Longer. I, again, don't remember what it's called. I have one of these in my evacuation kit for wildfire. I will also link that video down below in the description if you want to see it. But it's basically a very, very thick emergency blanket, as well as like signaling material. I don't know what it's made out of, some sort of poly something, I'm sure, but wind resistant, water resistant, on and on and on. So the reason I have it up on the top and not stuffed inside the pack, similar to having the pad on the bottom and readily accessible, if I need to get at this guy, if the weather shifts, if it just starts sleeting and snowing out of nowhere, which can happen a lot more frequently than you may think, I want to have something like this readily accessible. And then besides that, this can also be the ground cloth for my tent. Dual purpose is always nice. Continuing on, taking the brain off. All these are just clips, and as you could probably tell, this thing is a strap monster. There's straps everywhere. So inside the brain, I have first aid kit. This just has a bunch of random crap, bandages, second skin, like for blisters and stuff, Neosporin. I have a whole bunch of heartburn stuff, anti-diarrhea in case you get a little beaver fever. Yeah, first aid kit. My water treatment, besides being able to boil water in the stainless steel, 1 is none, 2 is 1, 3 is better. I have 3 ways to purify water. First is obviously, as I'm holding it in my hand, my Katadyn filter. I just prefer the Katadyn filter over the Sawyer Squeeze. I have used the Sawyer Squeeze quite extensively. That was my first backpacking filter, and while a lot of people like it, and I'm not going to hate on it, it just didn't work for me. And one of the biggest problems that I had with it is purging it and trying to get that water backed out and the maintenance process on it. I know it's not that complicated, but this is just simpler for me. And then it's also a lot easier to fill up a water bottle with this and just a easy pump rather than having to squeeze that bag. Personal preference, like all this, but nevertheless. And then my third way to treat water is I have some iodine tabs. This is the fail-safe, similar to boiling water. You know, like I say, 1 is none, 2 is 1, 3 is better. And when it comes to water purification, you can go about 3 weeks without food, but you can only go about 3 days without water. So this is very important to have covered. I cleared off the table a bit so we could have a little more room to work with. Next thing that's inside the brain is my area maps and base plate compass. Now this compass is not that fancy, but you know, in a pinch it'll get the job done. And then when I say area maps, I mean every map of my area. The Department of the Interior has a whole list of maps for every single region of the US. And the way they have them laid out, this back one is not my specific area, my specific region, so I have no problem showing you this. But you can see that blue square surrounded by numbers. That corresponds with different maps for that different area, and that blue square is the specific map that you're holding. So I not only have the map for my area, but then I also have the map for every single one of the other surrounding areas as well. I want to make sure that when I'm in the woods, I know exactly where I'm at. And it's all inside of a Ziploc bag for obvious reasons. If it rains, I want to make sure that these guys stay nice and dry. The last thing that's inside the brain is my Sea to Summit spork. Not just for backpacking meals, not just for MREs. This guy rocks just in everyday life. I actually have one of these just in my silverware drawer, and I use it semi-regularly because they're awesome. I like these guys. So that covers the brain, and now getting into the main pack. First thing you're going to notice is I have a purple bandana on top here. The reason I have that purple bandana there is because the cinch strap going over the top. It's a great idea, but then when you have dry bags on top, you don't want the strap to be wearing into them. So I have the bandana on top, not just for standard bandana use, like whether it be filtering water, or washing my hands, drying something off, but also to save out my dry bags so that they don't get all ripped up. This bandana is from Have a Hank. I have a whole bunch of these guys, and it's part of my winter EDC, which, since I've already mentioned my winter EDC, for those curious, we will be covering it in an upcoming video, just not this video. Now this first sea line bag is going to have a change of clothes in it, plus 2 pairs of underwear, plus 2 pairs of socks, plus a pair of sweatpants, plus a long sleeve undershirt. Not a lot of stuff in here, but enough stuff. And it's obviously not the stuff that I like. It's just some, you know, throw around stuff, some pants that I have not grown out of, not worn out of, but you know, just some backup pants. And then of course it's good to just have extra undies and extra socks and stuff like that. The sweats are obviously for around camp, and then the undershirt is in case I get cold and need an undershirt. And then during the winter time, I do have a second one of those ready to go where it has some warmer clothes in it, another undershirt, some long johns, stuff like that. And then I'll put that either on the top or inside the assault pack. Typically inside the assault pack, just so that I could have a change of clothes in that as well. Yeah. Then we have the main sea line dry bag, which, believe it or not, that's my sleeping system. Everything that's inside this bag, which actually, hey, I could get it out. This is my sleep system. I'm bougie with my sleep system because sleep is important to me. If you don't get a good night's sleep, you're not going to perform. And if you need to get up early to go out and beat the sunrise to get to a certain location, you better make sure you get a good night's sleep. And it's kind of hard for me to sleep when I'm not in my bed and not with all my comfy covers and all that stuff. So, you know, I want to give myself as much of a chance as possible. So to correspond with my ground sleeping pad, my bottom pad, this is my inflatable one, and it's a semi-inflatable one, so it already has some cushion to it, but then I can inflate it to make it a little bit more rigid. And that's actually better than a only inflatable one, even though those are easier to pack and lighter to pack. Not only was this guy cheaper, but if I ever get a puncture in it, yeah, I may not be able to inflate it, but at least I'll have some cushion. So This is a Thermarest Trail Scout, and it's the large size for those of you curious about the size. Then, got a pillow. Obviously, it's not a very nice pillow, but you know, pillows are very, very nice when you're camping. If you've done a lot of camping and you've tried to go without a pillow, you know how nice it is to camp with a pillow, even if it's a junky one like that. Then last but not least is my sleeping bag. Well, my sleeping bag plus an inflatable pillow because, hey, you might as well have a backup for your other pillow. And then a poncho liner. So not only do I have my sleeping bag, but I also have this poncho liner, which is really just a synthetic blanket at the end of the day. So with that, plus my clothes, plus a fire, I should be staying warm. And then I also have another trick up my sleeve that's inside the assault pack that we'll be covering here in a second. But that's everything that's inside the dry bags, but there's one last thing that's inside this main pack here. That'd be my bear canister, which holds all my food. Now obviously this is very region specific, area specific. Most people won't have to carry a bear canister with them, and even if they are in bear country, most people will opt for a PCT hang rather than a bear canister. For myself though, I bought this guy for my very first backpacking trip when I was planning on being a little Yosemite bum and running around that park left and right. And Yosemite requires bear vaults, and the ones that you can rent, while they're not bad, they're not as good as this. You can't pack them as easily, you can't strap them to stuff as easily. They don't work as easily as this guy. So I wanted to get an actual bear vault, and this is the largest bear vault size. So for a multi-day trip, for a multi-person trip, these things rock. And then the other cool thing with them is not only are they good for, you know, keeping bears out of your food, but they're good for keeping everything out of your food. From the big predators like bears, like wolves, like coyotes, all the way down to raccoons, squirrels, mice. You know, those little pack rats will take a lot of stuff from you, so it's good to make sure that my food is safe because it's my food and I'm hungry. So inside here, we just have a couple days worth of stuff. And let's also remember, guys, that you could go 3 weeks without food, but only 3 days without water. So even though some people may view this as an excessive amount of food, a lot of people may also view this as a lacking amount of food, especially for multiple days. So first off, MRE. This is enough food for 1 day if you stretch it out. But beef goulash is just one that I picked out. Yeah, not going to say that I like it, not going to say that I hate it, but I tolerate it, so it's inside my pack. Couple garbage bags. Keep your camp clean, ladies and gentlemen, and you may forget garbage bags, but just find a way, you know, stuff it back in your pack if nothing else. If I see litter out on the trail, not only does it not make me happy, but it makes me not like the people that did that. I'll put it that way, and don't let me catch a litter, and I'll leave it there. Then I have a couple of these Alpine Air meals. This one is not technically a meal. This is chocolate mudslide. It's a dessert. It's a freeze-dried meal. It's kind of like a pudding thing where all you have to do is mix some cold water in it, and you're good to go. I really like this guy. It's actually a meal, again, quotation marks, for two, but, you know, at the end of a day, this is very nice to have when you're sitting around a campfire and you just need a little pick-me-up. Forever Young mac and cheese, again, an Alpine Air meal. This one does require boiling water because it's a mac and cheese. You want to have a warm mac and cheese at the end of the day. And I like mac and cheese, so why not? The last Alpine Air is strawberry granola with milk. And similar to the first one, all you have to do is mix in some cold water and you're good to go. I actually really like this guy. It's a good breakfast item. Lightweight, packable, good to go. Then inside here we have not only a pot, but then a bowl. And this is a metal bowl, one of the stonewares, specifically a Smokey the Bear Filson Co. one. Still made in China, but you know what? It's still very cool. I like this guy. And while I have the full set, this one got a little ding, so I figured I might as well take it camping with me. And oh, look at that. Even more food. I'm just going to dump all this out here. So set the pot and the bowl to the side. This is a apple turnover, shelf stable. Chocolate protein drink powder, not bad. Cheese spread with jalapenos, au gratin potatoes, and then 2 liquid IVs. And I'm probably going to add a couple more to this pack because liquid IVs are lifesavers for me. So that covers everything that's in the main pack, including my food, my sleeping kit, my change of clothes, all that good stuff. So now it's time to talk about the assault pack. Now, I'm sure the people that aren't into military surplus won't understand how much of a flex it is to have the ILBE assault pack with the ILBE ruck, but suffice to say, it is a little bit of a flex. And before anyone gets salty in the comments, no, I did not pay the eBay premium. I got this guy legit inside a surplus store the way God intended it to be done. And I didn't get it when surplus was still good either. I found this like 2 months ago. They're still out there, ladies and gentlemen. You just have to search for them. So this pack is what I would take with me if I'm going out on a solo day hunt. You know, just one day. I don't need to carry all that gear with me. I'm not going to be worried about staying overnight. But I do want to have some gear with me in case I do need to stay overnight or if the weather gets bad. So that's basically what this covers. And then too, if I am out in the backcountry, I could use my main camp as a spider point, and then I could go miles away from camp just using this pack. And again, if I get stuck away from camp, boom, we're good to go. So the first thing that's inside here, I have a razor bone knife. This is scalpel sharp. It's one that has the replaceable blades. And now I do plan on trying to use my knife for any processing that I may have, but it's just good to have a foolproof with you just in case. Now that I use my knife or tried to use my knife instead of just going straight for the foolproof, because I want to use my knife, and if I can use it, I might as well, but you know, it's good to have this guy with me just in case. Then we got an 8x10 tarp. Now this is multi-use, similar to the Survive Outdoor Longer ground tarp or whatever you want to call it. I can not only use this as a ground tarp, but if I get an animal down and I need a clean surface, here's my clean surface. If I'm also in camp and it's really bad weather, I may want to have an extra layer over my tent, over my camp, to keep it all dry and out of any snow or rain that may be coming down. And an 8x10 tarp would allow me to not only cover the tent, but also cover a nice area in front for my gear, like my rifle, my packs. So this is a really good piece of kit to have. And continuing on with the theme of I may have to stay the night and that may not be a decision that I make, got an emergency blanket. You know, it may not be the best option, but if you need one and you don't have one, you're gonna wish that you packed one. And they don't weigh hardly anything, so might as well throw it in there. But my first option is obviously going to be a bivvy. Now, the cool thing with this bivvy is not only can I use it in an emergency where I'm, you know, away from camp and this is the only gear that I have, but if I'm in a really cold night, I can use this as a sleeping bag liner. So not only do I have my sleeping bag, not only do I have the synthetic poncho liner blanket to go on top, but I also have a sleeping bag liner. I should be warm with all that, plus a fire. And if not, we probably got bigger problems to worry about. Then we have the next section to my cooking system, and that would be not only this little titanium pot with some paper towels to keep the rattle down, but my stove and gas canister. Now, while I have used this, I haven't used it that much. I just don't like the idea of these stoves. They're just so top heavy. So, you know, I'm not going to completely fold it out, but you can kind of get the idea. You know, you have the gas canister, then your stove, then you have your cup of water or soup or whatever sitting on top. And yeah, these arms do unfurl out, so it's not like it's just sitting on that little burner. But, you know, I'll grab my bigger pot. You know, if I'm using this guy, imagine having that much water, that much boiling water. And then again, are there any level surfaces like this table out in the backcountry? Nah. You know, you're going to be making this on a boulder, in some dirt. The best you could hope for is that the ground is soft enough that you can kind of shift it around and get this thing leveled and sat in there. But, you know, it's just a little sketchy to me. So I would prefer to use fire to cook with, and I have in the past, not with either of these pieces of kit. Obviously, they're a little too clean for that. But I have obviously cooked with fire in the past. I think most people that have camped before have cooked with fire in the past. And I mainly keep this with me if I don't want to take the time to set up a fire, because there have been times where you're just getting done with a hike, you're getting done with the day, and you don't want to be fire tending. You don't want to take the time to build a rip-roaring fire. No, you want to set up camp, eat your food, and get into bed and call it a day. So I have this just for that purpose. Then we got some more trash bags. Again, keep a clean camp, and if I'm away from my main camp and this is all I got, then, you know, might as well keep an extra trash bag with me. Should also mention that if I am going to be taking this pack with me away from camp, then I'm probably going to chuck that MRE inside here and take it with me so that I have some food. And then I would just PCT hang this bag. You know, it's not ideal, but again, it's kind of just having the contingency plan. It's not that I am wanting to do that. It's just that I have the ability to if need be. And then the last big thing that's in here, some game bags. Now, ideally, whatever trail I'm going to be on is not going to be so difficult that I have to quarter the animal out and take it out in pieces. Ideally, I'm going to be able to just take the animal out whole after field dressing it. But of course, we don't live in an ideal world, so just in case I do need to quarter that animal out, we got some game bags. And then I forgot to mention this with regards to the tarp, but I have some paracord, and this is not only to hang the bag, but also to run the tarp, and then also possibly drag out any animal that I have. This is the line that I would use for the tarp setup as a tent, and then I have some more down in here to hang the bag, as well as potentially drag out any animal. I learned on my first backpacking trip that having the full strands of 100-foot paracord gets very, very cumbersome. So if possible, it's better to trim them down. This one, I believe, is 24 feet. I think it's 24 feet for the tarp. And I know it's for the tarp because it's green, and then the one that I have for the bag hanging is like a bright orange, similar to this. This is the same type of cord, and I just don't want to dig it out and make more of a knotted mess than I already have hanging in my hands. The last thing to the bag is this little guy that's on the front here. This is my fire kit. Now, I do have a fire kit that I keep on me 24/7, as long as I'm not sleeping during the winter. That's part of my winter EDC. But again, 1 is done, 2 is 1, 3 is better, blah, blah, blah. I'm a broken record at this point. It's good to have a robust fire kit with your camping gear. So I have a ferro rod that is a soft ferro rod, and that matters because a soft ferro rod is one that you're able to get shavings off, and ferro rods are partially made of magnesium, and if you know about magnesium, magnesium burns very well. So if you get those shavings off, you could then hit it with your knife, strike that spark, and then cause a really nice flash. So soft ferro rod over a hard one. Then got a nice chunk of fat wood that I could break down with my knife if need be. Of course, a lighter, which is always going to be the easiest option, but once it gets into like the mid-30s, that lighter becomes pretty unreliable. And there are ways to warm it up, whether you stick it in your armpit, put it in your mouth, whatever you may do, but you know, that's why I have a ferro rod as well as stormproof matches, because I may not have the time to do that. I may just need to be making a fire, so it's good to have multiple ways to start that fire. And then the last thing that I have in here is a little bit unconventional, but, you know, this is a homemade survival candle. If you are a proud owner of any Filson tin products, you'll know what this tin is. And all I did was take some paraffin candles, 3 to be specific, take them out of the little metal holders that they're in, set them in a triangle shape, and then take a whole bunch of beeswax, add it around there. And then I just set it on the edge of my fireplace and made this guy. Because it's beeswax, it's not going to melt being in this pack, even if the temperatures do get up. Not really, really hot during the day, but you know, reasonably hot for fall. This will not melt. The beeswax will keep it solid. And then not only can I use this to help start the fire, but also help keep myself warm. If I can't find good tinder, if I can't find dry materials and I can't make that fire, I can at least start this candle, cover up with the emergency blanket or the tarp, or possibly both, huddle up, trap that heat, and keep myself warm. It's just being able to know these little tricks and have these pieces of kit with you that can potentially save your life, or at the very least make you a little bit more comfortable during that horrible rain or snowstorm out in the backcountry. So with that, you guys, I think I've rambled about all of my crap for long enough. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're going out hunting this season, I wish you all the luck in the world. Please be ethical. Please treat the animal with respect. It is a living creature, even if you're viewing it on your dinner plate while you're looking at it through the sights. I get it, but please take care of that animal. And, you know, be safe out there too. I know a lot of my followers are outdoorsmen to some extent, and while I don't know how far out you go, I don't know how remote you go, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. You may just be setting up a tree stand on the edge of your property, and you may be able to see Billy Bob's house from your tree stand. But if you fall out of your tree stand and Billy Bob doesn't know that you fell, it could be just as serious as me, you know, being out in the backcountry and having a serious incident myself. So please be safe, please be ethical, have a great 2023 deer and elk hunting season. With that, ladies and gentlemen, like the video if you liked the video, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, share the video with someone you think also might enjoy it, comment down below if you have any comments or questions, and with that, thank you for watching, think for yourself, shoot straight, and I will see you next time.